Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us here at Remnant House, home of the strong and very courageous, for our weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and a privilege when we get together for these updates. These are done as a labor of love, a way for us to connect once a week as we go over um, headlines and things that are going on around the world from a biblical perspective. It's very important that we do this because, of course, the scripture tells us to be watchmen, to watch on the walls, to be paying attention to the things that are going on around the world, and definitely for us to be sober and vigilant in these days. And so I'm very thankful for all of you who join us. It's always a pleasure that you do. And I'm going to go ahead and put your comments up on the screen so you can see them. And grateful for all of you who share the links and who join us for these conversations each week. It's been good. I personally have found it very edifying that I don't have to be on the news all the time, which used to be the case. So if you're one of those people that that was your deal, shout out, because I was one of those people that was constantly getting updates, and I'm so grateful that I don't have that anymore. We do have this great website, remnantwatch.com, where we put all the stories that we're following and things that we've been tracking. Things that you may have seen us talk about in previous months. You can look up right here on the search bar, and you can go back and find stories that we've talked about in previous broadcasts. So definitely want to encourage you to use that. And of course, on the top here is always a banner that will bring you to our latest broadcast so that you are always catching the latest chit chat that we do here once a week. Now for those people that just rather read the links, and that's fine. It gives you a great way to scan the headlines and get them all kind of in one shot. I'm one of those people that tend to do that. And then if I like what not like, but if I want to know more, click on that and go there. So that works out really well for us. And hopefully that's been edifying and encouraging to you. So thank you to all of you who've shared the links, who've encouraged others to like and subscribe. You people are super awesome. Just saying. I mean, I might be a little biased, but I'm just saying, you're kind of awesome. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing and encouraging people to stay very positive, to remember that we won. This war is over. We're watching the wrap up. We're watching the cleanup on aisle 5 because, again, he's not running for king. He is king. Amen and amen. So continue to celebrate the victory that's already been won. Continue to walk in the thing he's called you to do, and continue to shine your light before men. Not my light, not somebody else's light. Shine your light before men, that they would see your good work and give kavod, give glory to your Father in heaven. Amen and amen. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight's top story, we're keeping an eye on this Argentina or Venezuela thing, because we don't know if it's going to pop off or if this is just smoke. But I'm going to tell you right now, guys, my suspicion is we're watching theatrics, okay? But nevertheless, we're paying attention to it because, hey, you never know. Again, these things can pop off and can become very dangerous. So Maduro, of course, down in Venezuela, this is the leader of Venezuela, is very defiant, and he says he's ready to fight the United States. He's not scared, and Maduro vows Venezuela is ready to fight and snubs Trump's ultimatum, and he dances on the stage with all his people, and he's doing the cha-cha-cha, or whatever you call that, the Venezuelan cha-cha, and he's not sad. He's not worried. He's not worried. He's pumping up his folks. He doesn't look like a guy who's about to go to war. Does that look like a guy that's about to go to war? That's worried about the United States of America coming to bomb him? It doesn't look that way to me. So what are we watching here? Well, I think a little theatrics. I think we're watching a lot of theatrics. And again, this is how money is printed. This is how banks are created. This is how industries are forged, with marches and things like this that give the impression of an organic ground roots thing. And it's very important that you understand the theatrics that go on in the world theater, so that you're not as bothered by it. You're not going, oh my goodness. Because again, you got to understand this is part of the way it works. And so that's why, I mean, we watch this stuff, right? We pay attention, but do we get ourselves overexcited? Not really. Because generally speaking, it tends to be more blubbery and bluffery than anything else. But nevertheless, it's interesting to watch. So we're going to keep an eye on it because, again, these things can go kinetic. You never know. And U.S. president, they are holding talks with their top generals. So they're preparing for whatever their classified endeavors will be. But nevertheless, the Venezuelan leader is dancing in the streets, not seeming concerned at all. The reason why is because I think that, again, this is a little theatrics. There are things going on behind the scenes that are beyond governmental, that are part of what they are trying to do. And so I think you're going to continue to see more and more sort of theatrics in the region. And not to be undone or left on the sidelines, Colombia says, hey, I want a little juice here. I want a little bit of this. So Colombia jumps on board and warns it's now. Apparently, it's good politics. You take on the U.S., you win political favor. I don't know. Might be the thing. So all of a sudden, Colombia, it's like, we'll take you on, man. Colombia warns it's on the brink of war with the U.S. as president hits back at Donald Trump. Gustavo Petro has issued an ominous warning to his U.S. counterpart after Donald Trump hinted at launching military strikes in countries producing narcotics. And, of course, Colombia has hit back at Donald Trump after the U.S. president said military action in the South American country was possible under the pretext of tackling drug smuggling. And Colombian President Gustavo Petro warned President Trump that he risked waking the jaguar with his comments, which were made during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday. And the U.S. leader said military strikes on land inside Venezuela, which he suspects of producing illegal narcotics for shipment to the U.S., which start very soon, and named Colombia as another potential target on his war on drugs. So he is turning this war on drugs into an actual kinetic war. Mr. Petro responded to the news on social media, writing, to threaten our sovereignty is to declare war. Do not damage 2 centuries of diplomatic relations. The Colombian leader also invited his U.S. counterpart to witness the country's destruction of drug labs in person. Come to Colombia, Mr. Trump. I invite you, so you can participate in the destruction of the 9 laboratories we do daily to prevent cocaine from reaching the U.S. So there's a bit of theatrics going on here. And we saw the same thing with the Venezuelan leader. Shalom, everybody. We saw the same thing with the Venezuelan leader because he started to write openly, an open letter he put out in the public to Donald Trump, exactly the same way, saying, hey, we just busted these guys, the Trente Agua. Remember those guys, whatever they are? I don't know what they are, but those guys that they're now beating up on or whatever. They were saying, oh, we went and got those guys and we're the good guys now. We went and busted those things. Come check your field office, check your FBI offices. You're going to find out, blah, blah, blah. So what's going on here? They're kind of countering the narrative with, hey, this is what we're doing. We're actively against these groups. What are you trying to pull here? Right. So this is very interesting. Theatrics again, guys, theatrics. And we have yet to figure out the full theatrical play here, but it doesn't matter. The point is they got a bunch of people going. And the big boys get to play with their toys. They get to threaten and negotiate and renegotiate. And I think that part of this had to do with attempting to contain China, and it's not working. Okay, so I think part of this whole thing was really, the sort of anti-BRICS, sort of BRICS pushback that I don't think is working. So unfortunately, we are going to have to, as the West and the Western nations, going to have to renegotiate and rethink how we interact with the rest of the world, because the numbers are coming in, folks, and it isn't good. Okay, it isn't good. So Western nations are starting to struggle, and I think that's a lot of what you're seeing here. Is more of that than it is some of what is the headline, if you will. So. Is it really general economic pressure? Is it changing alignments? Is it looking at influence that's coming from China and from that part of the world and wanting to check it? So we're going to have to continue to watch this because it looks like that's the case. And that is a very interesting thing that we're observing. Nevertheless, dangerous theater, right? So if you're in South America, if you're in these countries and you're listening to us or catching this broadcast, then you need to be aware that this could potentially get hot, and you've already been living in dangerous scenarios. So it's not news to you, but nevertheless, now new players entering the field, and they're talking about kinetic action in Venezuela. So when they're actually saying they're going to do kinetic action, that usually does portend it. So they usually don't say that unless they're going to do it. So it looks like they're probably going to be dropping some things in Venezuela. And the question is whether they're doing it with or without the government of Venezuela's approval and the people of Venezuela's approval. So I would think it would be very unwise, my opinion, not to at least attempt to get the people on your side if what you're really after are bad guys who are enemies of everyone inside another, inside of a sovereign nation. So it would seem to me that way. But what do you guys think? Because I think that's an interesting point of view, right? So what do you guys think? What would you do? Would you try and get the nation that you're looking at doing some kinetic action in to participate with you? It would seem to make sense. So why wouldn't they? Very interesting thing. We're going to keep watching the same thing with Colombia. Why wouldn't you work with them? So unless what you're after is really an overthrow and to upset the internal government, that's another possibility. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this theatrics as we go. Moving over to Eastern Europe, we know, of course, that things are sort of winding down in Eastern Europe with the Ukraine conflict, but that's not necessarily winding down the way that all parties wanted, right? And so now the Chechen leader is threatening Zelensky amid a drone strike and echoes of an alleged assassination plot. And this was, of course, in 2022 when basically they did target Zelensky, and he is now threatening him again. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov threats against Ukraine following a drone strike echo a 2022 plot. And there is evidence or a suggestion that there was just a recent attempt against President Vladimir Zelensky. The former Ukrainian government officials are reporting that this is actually an ongoing situation. So I've read several reports now, guys. And if you're kind of keeping an eye on this, you're probably hearing some of the same things where there are potential threats on his life. So are they seeing him as essentially the obstacle to a peaceful conclusion? I would think, based on some of his comments, that he's now become an obstruction to peace, even though Russia continues to take more and more eastern Ukrainian land. So his objections to ceding land to Russia seem to be moot because Russia is taking the land. So while they're negotiating and they're delaying and they won't come to the table, Russia is just pressing its advantage. And Ukraine and the Ukrainian forces, if they don't know, have already done the math and figured out that they're probably not going to win this, right? So what's the real resistance level, folks? I mean, this is over. And it's not even negotiating very well. So we're going to move on from this theatrics, where I think Europe hoped it would be able to use this conflict, kind of like other nations have used conflict, to sort of ride it out into a better economic scenario. And it just did not work out. And so Europe is in deep trouble. Meanwhile, we'll come back to that here in a moment. But meanwhile, what's going on with China? How badly were they damaged by the Trump tariffs, by the tariff war, by the Western nations who are anti-BRICS, right? I mean, we got to look at the math. We got to see, how are they doing? How did things turn out for them? Now, again, this is an important barometer because it indicates reality. And what this reality is that the Chinese had a surplus trade year that was remarkable. The Chinese surplus topped $1 trillion despite Trump's attempt to contain it. And this is devastating to Western thinking, the think tanks, if you will, the containment folks, guys who thought they could implement a strategy to contain China, have found it to fail. China's trade surplus roared above $1 trillion in November for the first time ever. So even though it is not even doing much business in the United States, which is very humbling, it's essentially saying, I can have a great year without you. I want you to think that through. That just put a nation in its place. If you don't see through that, you will. In the first 11 months of the year, China's overall growth, exports grew 5.4% compared to the same period in 2024, while imports fell 0.6, taking its trade surplus to $1 trillion this year as of November, up 21.6 year on year. Ridiculous growth level. I mean, that's ridiculous growth. Okay. We're talking redonkulous. Look at this. 21.6% year on year. The move came as China's U.S. bound goods fell for an 8th straight month. Not even using, in other words, we're not your customer and you're doing banner year business. And we're not selling you anything. We're not buying. So how much leverage does the United States now have given these numbers? Wow. That leverage, whatever it was, walked out the room. The move comes even as China U.S. bound goods fell for an 8th straight month. Okay. And so China continues to rely less on selling stuff to the U.S., wrote Peter Brokoff, chief investment officer at One Point BFG. So how many think, and I want your comments, I want your thoughts, how many think President Trump pushed the advantage too far? How many think he now has exposed that the United States doesn't have the effect on the economies of other countries as it once did? How many think maybe he might have done a mistake here, right? I personally think so. I think that there was a mystique. There was a sort of unwritten rule, if you will, that you needed the United States on board. And now that they've tested this and have data, well, now they're not going to believe that anymore. So the bloom's off the rose now. And I think it was a mistake to push the way that it was pushed, and the confrontational way in which those things were done is now badly backfiring. And I mean badly, folks. So this isn't going to get better anytime soon. And again, if they have this kind of banner year without doing business with the United States, what does that say? What does that portend for the future of the American system, the Western system, the Western banking system? All of it is going to be impacted by this success over here that thumbed its nose at this other system. You see what I'm saying? So that's saying a lot. And that's a big statement in our present world, especially when a lot of people are having a hard time. Now, before we get too far into that, we do have some folks that come to the United States and don't seem to understand that that's a privilege. And we want to take a moment right now and remind everybody that if you come to the United States of America and you want to make it a home for you, that's a wonderful concept. But don't come to any country, much less the U.S., anywhere, and then start threatening the citizens when you're a visitor. How does that make sense? Well, that's what some guy did in Texas. Just thought I'd mention this to throw this in. Federal prosecutors say an Afghan national made bomb threats on TikTok video in Texas. Talk about wanting a ticket home. How does that make sense? In any country, I don't care where you are. Bangladesh. They probably don't let you leave in Bangladesh. They don't send you home with a nice ticket, do they? A Texas man has been charged with making threats online after authorities set up video showing him threatening to build a bomb, conduct a suicide attack, and kill Americans, was posted on TikTok. He's a guest. He's a guest in the country. Unbelievable. So again, we do have an issue here with those that were led into the country who don't have our best interests at heart. It's a very dangerous time, folks, indeed. So we've got to be sober and vigilant, don't we, about public things, public gatherings, everything. But that was interesting. I thought that was just incredible to read. I imagine myself in a foreign country. I don't know about the rest of you, but I imagine myself, in some foreign country, and I'm like, You don't even want to spit on the sidewalk, man. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know the rules. You don't want to do anything. And this guy's like, what? It just goes to show you, folks. There's agendas and everything. So, unfortunately, that guy's now going to find himself on a plane, going somewhere else. No longer going to be living in Texas. That'll take care of that. Maybe he wants to go hang out with the Taliban. That might be a good thing. I don't know. Maybe he likes those guys. These guys are wild. Did you hear about this? The Taliban. I couldn't believe this headline. It's in the New York Post, so I just had to take it at least to be somewhat credible. The Taliban made a 13-year-old boy execute his relative's murderer. Okay, so a murderer that killed his relatives. He made him kill that person in front of 80,000 people at a stadium. So this was incredible. 80,000 people at a stadium witnessed this horror, basically. Now this young man is, of course, traumatized the rest of his life with that event. This is our world, folks. It's happening at the same time that people are watching football. Same time, same earth, same place, same everything, same literal time. So, sometimes we're in our echo chambers and not realizing the world we're in. And I think the United States is waking up from an echo chamber of a sort of way. It's starting to wake up to figure out where things are. I think Europe's also waking up from its own echo chamber. I think where Europe thought it could just do whatever it wanted to do and get away with it. So now they're a little nervous. And this is not a good sign, by the way. Whenever you see governments trying desperately to kind of control everybody, okay, that's a bad sign. It's a fear. It's an atmosphere of fear, or a culture of fear is starting to take over. A panic is starting to take over. It's not a good sign. It usually means that people who are maybe guilty of some things are a little afraid you might be figuring it out, right? So they're building their fences and hiding behind things because they're scared of what's going to happen when you figure out what they've been doing behind closed doors. What have you been doing over there? And so in England, now they're really rolling out hardcore that facial recognition camera, and it's planned for every town center. So they're really concerned about the town centers and the city centers, and really this is all around Europe. They're very concerned because Europe has a very revolutionary historical basis and foundation. So there's reason to be concerned. And police could be given access to Britain's passport database to catch criminals under an expansion of the facial recognition technology that could be deployed in every city, town, and village. So again, folks, we said this years ago. Never look at what they say, look at what they're capable of. The capability was brought in under one set of parameters and arguments, right? And you didn't think about the capability, you just thought about the argument they were making. Oh, we're doing it for this reason. It's the stoplight camera, it's a red light camera, it's a whatever. And so they gave you reasons that seem plausible and reasonable. Now you go, wait a minute, what else can it do? We didn't ask that question. Oh, now they flip the other switch and it gives you other abilities that they didn't tell you about, like facial recognition and person of interest type stuff, right? Okay, well, for those of you that are concerned about that, if you've walked through any public place, especially an airport, anything like that, well, by now you've already been facially recognized because they default to this software. So it's not something you are opting into or out of. It's just the way that they function. And it's something for you to be aware of because, again, as far as they're concerned, you're in their space. So that's why they get to surveil you, because you've come into their place where they have jurisdiction. And that's the way they feel. So are they wrong? I don't know. What do you guys think? A lot of people would like to push back against that. I think there's a lot of logistics to that are interesting. So they got these Britons and they got them all out there and they said, you're going to get facial recognition, and they're going to do that. But then they turn around and they tell everybody that they got to wear a mask. So I don't know. The math ain't mathing. It's a little weird. These people might have a little bit of goofy in the brain. Brits told to wear a mask as flu spreads across the country. So don't worry about that facial recognition for now. Just stick your mask back on. I just thought that was really funny because I'm going, well, I thought you just rolled out those cameras so you could take everybody's picture. And now you just told everybody to put a mask on. So a lot of good that's going to do to have facial recognition software when everybody's got masks on. Okay. And by the way, that's a great way to get all your people sick, right? We found out as we came out of that and did homework and started looking at the nasty that was in these masks that people were reusing. Ugh, that was 10 times worse than anything you might potentially. Oh, gosh, terrible, terrible for you. But nobody wanted to talk about that. So we don't talk about that. But that's reality, right? So everybody has to be wise and make their own choices. I just thought that was interesting going on in India, or I'm sorry, England. And actually, India is doing the same thing. They're doing a lot of control matrix type stuff. Did you guys hear about this? In India, they've now ordered all, this is reported by the New York Times, all smartphones have to have a tracking app. All of them. No more options. They took away your options. So it went from, oh no, we don't, we don't do that. No, we don't track you guys. No, man, we're the good guys. No, you get a phone. No, it's cool. We don't do that. No, it's totally fine. Okay, now we're ordering everybody to have it. Everybody. We're ordering it, demanding it. The government said the rules were needed to prevent theft and other crime. Its opponents and privacy activists regard the app as a tool of mass surveillance. Yeah, think. Critics say the app functions as a surveillance tool, blurring the lines between preventing fraud and monitoring citizens' phone activity. And India's government sent a notice to private companies last week, giving them 90 days to ensure that a government app was pre-installed on mobile handsets manufactured or imported for use in India. The order said the requirement was meant to identify and report acts that may endanger telecom cybersecurity. So now, for the sake of telecom cybersecurity, you, the citizen, are now subject to this new rule. Do you get that? So you just came under autocratic rule without even knowing it. Autocratic. There was no vote. There was no real vetting in the public or anything. It was just ordered. Just ordered. And what should happen, I mean, it isn't going to happen. What should happen is they all should take their phones and throw them in the river and just be done with them. But they're not going to do that. But that's what they should do. And then that would end that. But unfortunately, they tricked humanity into these devices, tricked us all into thinking they were essential for our lives. And then, of course, now start pulling shenanigans like this. So are they done with their shenanigans? Oh, no. Not by a long shot, folks. And that's why it's really important that you do not sit on the sidelines and let them sort of rule it all, because they're wicked. Okay, you've got to push back. And this is why we need to stand together, united in one accord, and say, no, my privacy is my business and my sovereignty is my business, right? And this is important in America, in the West, in all countries, really, as people are starting to wake up and go, wait a second, I don't remember giving you the power to do that. And this is starting to cause a lot of issues. And so I think it's going across the board in various directions. Now scientists are starting to ask new questions about AI. And will that be used to sway elections and give us the appearance of rule by choice, if you will, or consent to the governed, but in reality it's manipulated by an AI, right? So scientists are increasingly worried that AI will sway elections. How many know that we better bring some truth filter and some accountability into that arena? And we better do it quick. Like, scientists are raising alarms about the potential influence of artificial intelligence on elections. Think that's important? Think maybe we should push back against any lying or hallucinating going on there? I think so. According to a spate of new studies that warn AI can rig polls and manipulate public opinion. Oh boy, howdy. They're really good at gaslighting too. And in a study published in Nature on Thursday, scientists report that AI chatbots can meaningfully sway people toward a particular candidate. You bet they can, providing better results than video or television ads. Moreover, chatbots optimized for political persuasion may increasingly deploy misleading or false information. That's absolutely true. It's a different form of bot. And I'm telling you right now, it's very powerful. The general public has a lot of concern around AI and election interference, but among political scientists, there's a sense that there's really hard to change people's opinions. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if you got something chatting with it, seeming intimate, and starting to gather information and doing it intelligently, can be very, very powerful. And the Nature study ran and his colleagues enlisted 2,300 U.S. citizens to converse with an AI chatbot in late August and early September. The AI model was tasked with both increasing support for an assigned candidate and with increasing the odds that the participant who initially favored the model's candidate would vote, or decreasing the odds they would vote if the participant initially favored the opposite candidate. In other words, voter suppression. So they figured out how to use it in both directions. Is that dangerous? Oh, just a wee bit. Just a wee bit. Because the informed voters' vote is just as powerful as the uninformed and manipulated voters' vote. So this is very, very dangerous. And I think that, again, requiring the saints, requiring those who are not under other forms of constraint to bring remedy and counter, as has always been the case. Never have we ever looked to that side to bring its own counter. It never has happened. In the history of Earth, it's always been that Yahuwah has to raise up the counter. Amen. Speaking of the counter, there's a whole lot of people wondering why they can't get anything at a counter because there's nobody there. Employees are suddenly departing from retail. Retail is becoming really difficult to staff because retail workers currently earn, look at this, 51.6% less than they need just to afford rent. So retail is no longer a good employment direction. And this is bad. Typical retail worker in America earns $34,436 per year, the company said. And a renter would need to earn $71,000 to afford the typical apartment, which costs $1,779 a month. That's significant. That signifies a shortfall of about 36 grand needed to afford an apartment, even though overall affordability has improved slightly in recent years. And I don't buy that. I think we're suffering a massive depression. In Cleveland, a typical retail worker earns 32.9% less than needed to afford a residence, the smallest shortfall among 40 metropolitan areas analyzed by the brokerage. So what we're seeing is the reality on the ground. No more fluffing with numbers and pretending everything is great. People are really, really starting to get impacted by economic policy that has turned out to be foolish. So here we are, folks, and I believe that we are in the midst of seeing a massive economic downturn. Okay, and that's become partly because of this international conflict with countries like China. So manufacturers are seeing a shrink of their orders for 9 months in a row. This is terrible for the economy, according to MarketWatch. IMs are finding tariffs hurt sales and keep the lid on hiring. So business conditions remain soft as a result of higher costs from tariffs and the government shutdown and increased global uncertainty. So, it looked like a good idea on paper. It probably sounded great. We're going to do it this way. And the shock treatment to the country without any real warning or prep was too much. It was too extreme. And now the repercussions are coming in. And you can't just wish them away, Mr. Trump. This is a reality of the economic situation that you've inherited. Whether you want to blame a previous administration or not, reality is layoff announcements top 1.1 million this year, the most since 2020. Since the pandemic, and it's the most cited reason for months was restructuring, followed by closing and market or economic conditions. Well, we're going to talk a little more about that, but that's reality. And now job cuts from U.S. employers move further ahead of 1 million for the year in November as corporate restructuring, artificial intelligence, and tariffs have helped prepare job roles. Consulting from firm Challenger and Gray and Christmas reported on Thursday. The firm said layoff plans total 71,000 in November, a step down from the massive cuts announced in October, but still enough to bring the 2025 total to 1.17 million. That is a lot of jobs that have been eliminated. Jobs, folks, not money, jobs. So that's huge. And of course, big companies like Verizon and just companies that were stable employers for many years are now dropping employees like crazy. So what's going on? Well, the economy has changed. As I keep telling you, folks, and I've told you for years now, we've moved into a digital economy. There isn't a way to go around it. You can try and get upset about it. You can shake your fist at it, and that's as silly as shaking your fist at debit cards when they came out in the 90s. Remember that? And there were people that were very against them. They were very, oh, the debit card's from the devil. And, they argued and debated and disconnected, thinking everyone would leave to it didn't work. And of course, we ended up with that just being a norm. So what's happening here is exactly the same thing. There's a lot of pushback with people not wanting change because change means change. But reality is, if you don't change, if you don't adapt, if you don't flow with the change of the tide, the change of the roll of the waves that are coming in, if you don't change with that, you're going to get bowled over. And that's exactly what's happening with a lot of companies out there. And we saw this happen. Remember, guys, when the yellow pages went out? Remember the yellow pages? How many remember that? If you're older, you remember this was a staple in American business. And then it went out. It stopped. Why? Because it stopped being profitable. Nobody was using it. It was a doorstop. It was a child safety seat. The yellow page was a safety seat. That's what it was, guys. Right? Why? Well, because everybody went digital. Okay. Well, the same thing's happening right now, and this is what's going on when people don't catch up quick enough. Mom and pop business bankruptcies hit a record. Okay, so this is telling you the nexus of what's happening. Hit a record as debts rise. So a 6-year-old federal program designed to help the smallest American businesses cut debt and keep a fresh start has set a record for the number of case filed. Court data shows, and more than 2,200 people and small firms filed bankruptcy this year under the so-called Subchapter 5 rules, which make it cheaper and faster to win relief from creditors, according to data provided. So people are looking for every form of relief. Small businesses are crashing out there. They're crashing because, again, they were built on an old model. They're built on a system that was making certain presumptions. And those presumptions turned out to be false. And as a result, these businesses are failing. So, again, you can get upset, or you can catch up. You can figure out what's going on, and you can say, all right, we've got to get on board with what's happening on the earth right now. And so that's what I think a lot of people are slowly doing. And businesses are doing it. Companies are doing it. They're realizing they'll go out of business if they keep doing things the old-fashioned way. So they're letting people go. They're lowering their costs while they retool. This is going to go on all over the earth, not just the United States. This is happening globally or all across the earth because everyone is adjusting to new tools, new capability, and new ways to employ. Okay, new mechanisms of employment. So the day of the 9-to-5 employee, that was the typical staple of most economies, has waned considerably. And now you have the gig worker and the affiliate and the independent contractor and so forth. That has become basically the default norm of most economies. And so again, pay attention because things are shifting. Speaking of shifting over to the earth, I tell you what, the earth is starting to shift. We're starting to see earthquake swarms, which continue to run off, shaking the Near East. And of course, this is in San Ramon, California. So we saw a swarm of small earthquakes that shook the East Bay Tri-Valley region early Monday, the latest in a pattern of seismic activity southeast of San Ramon. And the strongest Templar multitude 3.7 struck at 9:07. Now, guys, I want to tell you, it's not just here. So this is out of the San Francisco standard, but there were other spots that saw movement. So we also saw this report out of Japan, and Japan had a huge earthquake and then a tsunami warning issued after a magnitude 7.6. That's a skyscraper shaker, man. That's a biggie. Okay, that'll mess things up big time. Okay, that's no small earthquake, folks. That's a big deal. And the tsunami warning has been issued after a huge 7.6 earthquake struck off Japan. Authorities warn that a maximum 10-foot tsunami is expected to reach coastal areas, urging residents in low-lying zones to evacuate immediately. And again, guys, one of the reasons why we keep emergency information available on remnantwatch.com is because you never know when this is going to happen. These people were not planning on this happening, and then suddenly they got to leave, right? So the epicenter was off the coast of Amari Prefecture. The quake struck at about 11:15 p.m. Okay, so again, not exactly in the middle of the afternoon when it's nice and convenient. It's another thing. And Japan's meteorological agency reported that the epicenter was located approximately 33 miles deep beneath the seabed. So officials have issued immediate evacuation orders for the several regions. And again, when evacuations happen, you don't have a lot of time to prep. You don't have a lot of time to think. You just got to move. Okay. And we're seeing this more and more, guys. We're seeing this more and more on our earth. That's why we need to be prepared. You need to have good bug out plans. I've been saying forever, if I just sold bug out insurance, who wants to buy some bug out insurance? If I just sold bug out insurance, we'd do great. We'd have lots of members. It's like, I just want bug out insurance. I just want to know that if I have to bug out, I can come there. Like that would probably work. It's so many people have made no plans, and then they stop and they think about it and they go, hey, I need a plan. So be a good idea to start thinking about that. Certainly to be aware that you live in a time that emergencies are happening like left and right. So it seems like every time we turn around, there's another earthquake. Oh, wait, there's another one here in Alaska. Magnitude 7 earthquake rocks Alaska, not along the same Pacific Rim. What's going on? Do we have, Leviathan shaking his tail here, folks? Is that what's happening? What's going on? Are we waking the kaiju? Are we going to see monsters? Magnitude 7 earthquake rocks Alaska. More than 20 aftershocks fell. Now, Alaska's already been shaken and baking. So, wow, that says a lot. 7.0 magnitude earthquake has rocked Alaska on Saturday, December 6th, according to the USGS. And the earthquake occurred at 11:41 a.m. All right, well, at least this one was in the middle of the day. Local time in the northeast of Yakutat, Alaska. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau, Yakutat had a total population of only 657 people in 2020. So it's not an overly highly populated area, but how many know that it doesn't matter? And devastation is devastation. So we need to be aware that our world is going through some kind of flux period. And this is why I keep warning people to be awake in this time. It's happening everywhere. There's all kinds of things that are happening, just natural disasters that once in 100-year floods and once in 1,000-year rains and left and right. Here we go with Indonesia flooding, a disaster leaves over 600 people dead. That's a big number for a disaster, guys. Just saying. That's not normal. We normally see 10, 20 people at the most that get killed in a disaster, even tornadoes, hurricanes, all of it. But then you see this and you go, whoa. Okay. And there's still hundreds more missing. So this is some serious devastation going on Earth. The death toll from widespread flooding and landslides in the Indonesian island of Sumatra has risen to at least 604, according to the country's National Disaster Management Agency. Things that we knew in the scripture told us the earth would respond. Thousands remain missing or displaced as emergency teams struggle to reach isolated communities. The agency said on Monday that 464 people were still unaccounted for and 2,600 have been injured in what is now one of the country's deadliest, largest natural disasters in recent years. So again, we're seeing one more time, another unprecedented, right? Unprecedented. Oh my goodness, I haven't seen this before. How many times in 3-4 years? I don't remember when we started doing these, but at least 3 years of broadcasts. How many times have we said, guys, a once in 100-year rain or something like that? It just keeps happening. So again, unprecedented, never happened there before. So you can't go by, oh, that stuff never happens here, Peter. We don't have to worry about that because that never happens here in the such and such a mountains or such and such a valley. And you're like, it never happens here. Man, there's stuff happening in places that it's never happened before all over the place. In fact, that's not a good thing to say. That it's never happened before. It almost puts you on the list. It's crazy. Again, don't take that for granted. Be sensitive in the Ruach. In Spain, there again, a lot of countries are really turning inward. So a lot of this talk about war, I don't know. A lot of these countries are turning their own troops inside their own countries to try to keep their country together. Spain is deploying the army after African swine flu or fever breakout, Spain on Monday deployed more than 100 troops to help contain an outbreak. I don't know how troops are containing an outbreak, but okay. Can anybody tell me this? Because I don't really understand the story. I read it twice and I didn't understand it. I still don't. 100 troops to help contain an outbreak of African swine fever outside Barcelona that sparked fears for the country's powerful pork export industry. So Spain likes to export pork. And they are joining 300 Catalan regional officials deployed at the Calcerela National Park, where 2 dead boars that tested positive for the disease were found last week. Spain's first case since 1994. And 117 officers from the Army's emergency unit would carry out work with drones. So again, these are wild boars. Why are they concerned about an outbreak unless people are eating the wild boars, right? In which case, you tell them, don't eat the wild boars. They'll get you sick. So I couldn't quite figure out why the Army national, like why they got to bring the Army. Couldn't figure that one out. I was like, huh? But what it did tell me, and so what I got out of this, guys, the reason why this still made the cut, was it's part of this repertoire, part of these stories that I keep seeing that are sort of countries are sort of turning inward. They're using their troops or their forces to sort of reestablish their own dominion, their own domains, their own sovereignty. So it's very interesting things going on inside countries using what normally would be used for outside actions are being used inside. So that's, I think, why this story kind of stuck with me a bit and made it through the cut, if you will. Did not get dropped off the list. And so, we're seeing a lot of things that indicate like a reset, but they didn't tell us the reset, right? So, for example, when I saw this story, you know what I thought of? With Trump's accounts, your baby could qualify for $1,000. You know what I thought of? I thought of the 30s when they turned birth certificates into bonds. Okay, that's what I thought of. I honestly did. I thought, oh, did you guys reset that system? Do you guys have a new system now where you're turning babies into bonds in a different way? It's exactly what I thought. I could be completely crazy. I could be nuts. Right? I could be wrong, guys. But it just struck me odd. And the children of wealthy households leave the nest. They often benefit with their parents' largesse in the form of a trust fund. And so what if everyone had one, right? So they're giving everyone the trust account. Makes it sound so good. But given the history of what we've been through, and given their use of registrations to monetize systems, is anybody else going, Okay, so thank you. My cousin says at least he's nuts with me, so that at least I got two. We're 2 coconuts, so at least we got 2 coconuts. And we'll both be coconuts together. But, I don't know. That one made me go, what are you guys really up to here? This is interesting. So I'm going to keep an eye on this story. I look forward to the dissections that happen as we walk. This is why we got to be careful and not move too quick quick, sign up for this program. Don't be first to sign up for any government programs. Never a good idea, no matter what it is. Even if they're giving something away, don't be the first to sign up. It has never worked out really well for anyone. Okay. Speaking of things that are not working out, if you typically, and I know a lot of households do, buy your food from Walmart or Target, well, you might want to pay attention to this next story because 1.5 million bags of shredded cheese that was sold at Walmart or Target is being recalled over metal contamination fears. So you bought a bag of metal with cheese in it. More than 1.5 million bags of shredded cheese sold at retailers, including Walmart and Target, have been recalled after the Ohio-based manufacturer warned that the products may contain metal fragments. So this is a big company, Great Lakes Cheese Company, the Hiram, Ohio-based firm, sells products all throughout the upper Midwest. I know that for a fact. Multiple brands sold at major retailers, and the recall which began on October 3rd, by the way. So I didn't even hear about this. So this is news to me. Stems to potential metal fragments in supplier raw materials, prompting what regulators describe as a downstream recall across several product lines. And so, metal shavings stuck in the cheese. Okay, so grab a magnet, see if you got metal in your cheese. And if you do, well, you better get that back to the store and get a refund. Okay, this is an interesting thing, though. We're continuing to see the dangers of giving away this responsibility of food production to those that don't love you, right? So, was that a good idea? I think if we could all rewind the clock 50 years or 100 years, we might not give them that power now that we see what they did with it, right? So, is that a good idea going forward? Probably not. And so I think that's another thing that's changing is people's patterns are changing as more information comes out. Their buying patterns are changing, and that's affecting a lot of businesses. Speaking of affecting you, if you were in an airplane, there are 20 passengers that were injured in a blast of what they're calling cosmic rays from space, if you can believe that. So a space expert is basically, out there saying that their plane dropped and disrupted people in their flight because of, high energy particles traveled millions of light years caused by a supernova. And how many of you are like going, what? Just pay the people, man. You're playing malfunction. Just give the guys a check and some free tickets and stop making up lies about some mysterious force from way out there somewhere caused this malfunction of the plane. Right. Okay. So I digress. I think a lot of stories that are just ridiculous. There's a lot of concern and fear-based stories that are that just didn't make the cut. But the ones that are making the cut are the reality, folks. And the reality is that on the ground, the economy is bad. Home sellers are giving up at an unusual high rate. Retailer report is home delisting in October was up 45% year to date and up nearly 38% from October 2024, according to a new report from Realtor.com, which means more potential buyers are heading to what Realtor calls our refuge markets. Cities like Grand Rapids, Michigan, and St. Louis, where home prices are lower. Canceled purchase agreements are also on the rise, now well above pre-pandemic levels. And so attempts to restart the economy have not worked. Late fall trends to be the time when most homes come off the market, as so far unsuccessful sellers would rather not sit through the slow winter months. In October, however, delistings, which are reported with 1 month lag, were up 45%. Yikes, that's a big number year to date, and rose nearly 38% from October 2024. That's a huge jump, guys. If you would have predicted that and said, this is what's going to happen a year from now, they would have laughed at you. And that's in fact what occurred. So big shaking going on in the economy that doesn't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. We're going to probably see more difficulty in the days to come economically because, again, folks, we're still coming out of old analog systems and trying to function in a digital world. It's going to keep being a problem. Another thing that's a challenge for us is everything that we've done community-wise. And, and it looked like a good idea. Everybody join a gym, and that will be great. Except that this also now becomes a place of contamination. 14 cases of Legionnaire's disease reported in Florida, and it may be linked to a gym. Health department told state officials the outbreak may be linked to a gym, and it's a Legionnaire's disease reported in Central Florida. It's a very dangerous disease, and Crunch Fitness is kind of become the focal point of review. Legionnaire's disease is a severe form of pneumonia caused by inhaling the Legionella bacteria in small droplets of water mixed in the air or contaminated water accidentally going into your lungs. So Legionella bacteria are found naturally in fresh water, but typically grow best in warm water and warm temperatures. So they're suspecting that may have come from the gyms that we all think are so awesome. So again, one of those things you have to now think about and say, well, is that worth it? Maybe you should have a gym in your own house. I don't know. Could happen there too. So again, especially with my kid, my son, if my son's in that gym, it's going to be sweaty. I'll tell you for sure. So you probably have the same problem. Nevertheless, welcome to our world. One of the things that I want to continue to point out and encourage you all about is where we put our children. And it seems like weekly we have more and more stories like this where we've got teachers that are being caught with some really wicked things that are happening. Grimacing teacher arrested for grooming a student using Google Docs before having sex with her inside of a classroom. A disturbed science teacher allegedly groomed an underage student through secret Google Doc messages before finally engaging in sexual acts with her on and off campus. And this is a 26-year-old teacher of a Jewish academy in Palm Beach County was arrested amid appalling allegations of a sexual relationship with a student. So we continue to see these reports. We continue to see those that are doing these things getting caught. But nevertheless, our children are the bait. And so, do you want your child to be bait in this war? So that's something that we obviously are asking new questions about, and I think wisely so. Continue to pray for those that are in that scenario where they have children in those places, because again, we continue to see these reports, and I haven't seen an abating of it. It seems like every single week. I don't repeat these stories, guys, and it seems like every single week we've got another teacher, principal, vice principal, somebody in charge of children somewhere who decided that authority meant that they had entitlement to other benefits, if you will, right? To be not crass. So we've reached a point where, as parents, as families, we can no longer trust that institutions are protecting. You have to now ask new questions. And that's one of the reasons why we keep encouraging people to think about homeschooling, think about different forms of training up your child and protecting them, because there's a lot of danger in our world, and danger that may be unnecessary. And we may need to learn new ways to function, new ways to earn, new ways to generate income, new ways to function in a digital economy. That isn't going to go away. So roll your sleeves up and start learning some new things. And our final story tonight, some odd things happening in New Mexico. Whoa. You guys heard about Roswell, New Mexico, right? I'm sure you guys are well versed about Roswell and the 1947 crash of a UFO in New Mexico that started the whole UFO era. Well, they had some serious goings on in Roswell. In the same place, a mysterious fire erupted in a hangar, and they don't have a good explanation as to why. But this report did come out. So we are, of course, keeping an eye on it. But this is what we know. It has erupted at the same place that they had that infamous crash. So who finds that interesting? I do. I don't think there are such a thing as coincidences, so I like to think about things like that. A major fire broke out late Thursday at Roswell Air Center, just south of the legendary Hangar 84, a site long tied to the infamous 1947 UFO crash. And fire crews rushed to the scene after the blaze was reported around 7:55 local time in East Earl Cummings Loop. And authorities initially feared the fire could trigger a dangerous explosion due to hazardous materials, but that didn't happen. So, who thinks this is suspicious? There's been so much attention to UFOs and things like that I thought this was odd that this story would pop up. And so, what are your thoughts, folks? Are they continuing to drop into the narrative, a thought in our mind that there are UFOs, that there are flying saucers, and that is a new threat, right? Many people believe that this could be used as a unifier to bring humanity under one centralized control if we had a universal threat. So, not a crazy thought. Some people think that's actually plausible. So, I'd love your thoughts. Drop them in the comments. It's always a pleasure to hear what you're thinking about. Some of these stories are really interesting as we go. But as the King told us, we're to be sober and vigilant and always look up, because our redemption draws nigh. Well, that's tonight's report. I pray this broadcast has been a blessing to you. And I'm so thankful for every one of you that joined us. Please share the link. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you so much for joining us. May He bless each and every one of you in your homes. Good night.